Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, I am joined by the lovely Zoya, who is a nutritionist and a performance dietitian for women in strength sports and men as well. But today we're talking because y'all are all women. So when it comes to her coaching, she believes in helping people create sustainable habits that suit their lifestyle, their environments, and capacity at the time. Now, her main goal is to help empower her clients through nutrition education and support to help them achieve their goals. Zoya, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So for those who don't know you, would you mind giving us a little bit of a breakdown, like what got you into nutrition and what got you also into helping women in strength sports?
Yeah, so it's been a long journey. So what I guess getting into nutrition started first. So I started with my Bachelor of Human Nutrition back in my early 20s. Did that, knew I kind of wanted to go into research as well, and was always really active throughout my life. So started weight training from about 16, 17. Just, I think about it now and I'm actually really embarrassed, but wearing gloves to the gym and to weight train. Thinking about it the other day. But anyway, so it was 15, 16, started. We get my dad to drop me off at 7 a.m. before school, high school, and get a weight training session in. Then got into CrossFit, got into gridiron. I played gridiron for a couple of years, and then eventually got into Strong Woman, which is what I do now. And along the way, I was studying nutrition the whole time. So did my Bachelor of Human Nutrition, then did my Masters of Dietetics. So I'm a dietitian. Took a few years off, did some private practice work, did some industry work, went back to do my honours because I always knew I wanted to do my PhD. So I had to do an honours year. After doing that, I eventually got into the PhD program, and it was really kind of the stars had aligned because the project that I got accepted for was active aging, and essentially the study was getting participants to do 12 weeks of resistance training and looking at ways that we can prevent muscle loss in the older population, the active older population. So it was really kind of bringing together my love for strength sports and nutrition and sports nutrition into one. So I finished that, did my PhD last year, finished that, and now I'm working as postdoc at Deakin University, doing something quite similar, more around the effects of particular pain medication on muscle mass, more in a younger population. I also do, as you mentioned, nutrition coaching, so I do online nutrition coaching as well. Put a lot of information out in terms of science communication. That's my passion, to really educate and empower people in regards to nutrition, because it's good enough to know the things that you need to know, but I like to teach people why we need certain things and what's the mechanism behind it. And that's just how my brain has always worked. So I like to explain it in a way that I think that everyone would understand, and I hope that comes across. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
I love that. It's so cool to obviously have you on today, because I don't think I've spoken to a dietitian who does clinical research as well. And I think diving into a little bit of that will be really cool. So you mentioned before we started recording that you're doing this clinical study right now with the pain medication. Do you mind explaining to our listeners what it is exactly that you're doing the study on?
Yeah, so it's a particular pain medication that would, it's perfectly available on the market. It's not, we're not testing it for, the efficacy or the safety of it, but we know that particular medication, so your non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, so your Nurofen Plus, that sort of stuff, and your Panadol, when you take that for acute pain relief essentially. It obviously does work for that, but it also can block what is known as muscle protein synthesis. So muscle protein synthesis is just the process of muscle building. And that can obviously have huge implications in your athletic population who take these types of medication quite regularly, and can maybe affect the adaptation of that, as well as, some other effects that those medications can have. We're essentially looking at this alternative that uses a different pathway for that pain relief, and doesn't have any effect on muscle growth that we know of. So that's what we're essentially doing. It's an 8-week study, and we're testing to see whether or not it has any effect on muscle growth. So the study involved is, we're looking at untrained individuals, so people that haven't done weight training, because we know we can get a really big response in muscle mass. We all know the newbie gains are real, and that's been documented in the literature. And essentially one group is taking this medication, the other is taking a placebo. They do weight training for 8 weeks, and then we're just going to measure their muscle mass before and after, along with some other markers as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting study, and it could have some really good implications for the active population as well. So, yeah.
I love that. When is the study going to be outsourced?
So we've started it.
Yeah.
So we're at round 1 of the clinical trials. We need 48 participants. I've got 17 at the moment. So we'll probably finish up this time next year in terms of recruitment and getting participants through, then take 2 to 3 months for the write-up. So that, probably mid next year, everything will be done. We'll actually have the results. We're also blinded to it. So I actually have no idea who's taking what. There's another researcher that's not associated with the study that's doing the randomization. So even if I saw the results, I will still have no idea, what the effects are until right at the end. So yeah, that's a very high quality study in that sense.
I love that. That's so cool, because I don't know the ins and outs of research and studying, and for you to say, it might take you a year and then the write-up takes about 2 to 3 months. I don't think people realize how long it actually takes to do a particular study.
Yeah, so my PhD took 2.5 years for the study from start to end. It takes a long time, and I think people do, unless you're in it, you won't know. That's it's a lot of management of participants. It's a lot of management of resources. Money's involved, obviously, and you do work with humans, and unfortunately sometimes humans don't do what you tell them to do, even in the clinical studies. So sometimes you might have to remove them if they're not compliant, and then you have to actually get more participants in. So it really depends on the study design, but there's a lot of nuances in clinical research.
I love that. That's so cool. Have you done any similar researches in the past regarding this type of training and methodologies around painkillers, or is this completely something new?
This is completely new.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So fascinating. How long have you been doing research for now?
So I started with my honours. That was a few years ago. So I looked at the genetic influence that the genetic effects of certain caffeine metabolizers have on your ability to metabolize caffeine. So it's very complex, but essentially we've got particular what are called single nucleotide polymorphisms. And I'm really sorry to throw that really heavy science term out, but it's essentially a gene that you will have that can be up or down regulated. So if you think of a dial based on your environment. So people have these particular polymorphisms, which, for example, there's one that, I might have that you have slightly different, and it just means that we will metabolize caffeine very different. So I might be a fast metabolizer, you might be a slow metabolizer, and what are those effects on performance and everything else? So that's what I was looking at. Then I did my PhD, which was the active aging one. I did a bit of work in endurance athletes post PhD, and then I'm doing this job at Deakin. So a bit of research. I'm still considered an early careers researcher. So you're an early careers researcher up until 10 years after your PhD. So it's a very quite new in the research world.
10 years. Wow. That's intense.
Academia is pretty behind these sorts of things, I'm not going to lie, but yeah.
I love that. So cool. In terms of coffee, I reckon I'm definitely a fast metabolizer. It like hits me like exactly when I have it.
Yeah, so I mean, based on the literature, that could mean that you might need more or less, depending.
Probably less.
Yeah, or less. It just depends. There's different genotypes as well. So caffeine's the most widely studied supplement as well. Yeah. And this whole idea of genetics is so new, and we're really scratching the surface of it. So yeah, it's a very novel area.
I love that. So cool. Speaking of painkillers, caffeine, let's dive a little bit into the nutrition side of things, because that's, something that you're very passionate about and you specialize in. What are some misconceptions that you have found working with clients or even experimenting with yourself around nutrition and performance, or those who are within the strength sports?
Yeah, so I guess there's a few. I think the first one when it comes to performance and strength is that you need to have abs to be athletic, or you need to be a certain body fat to, be competitive or something along those lines. And yeah, there's like a real emphasis on body composition and looking a certain way in order to be strong or in order to be fit. And, as you would know, it's such a big misconception. And if anything, abs can really, not all the time, but can be an indication of, disordered eating or, other health issues that do come with lower body fat percentage. So I think that's the biggest one. And that's a real big one, especially in the strength world. I've definitely been, wrapped up in that as well personally, thinking, as a health professional, you see so many people that use their body as advertisements in the industry. So it's really, you kind of have to step back and think, okay, well, actually, that's not me, or try not to let that affect you. And there was a time where I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I do need to work on my body composition so that people take me more seriously. I have a PhD in nutrition. Like, if people aren't taking me seriously, then, I mean, I don't know what else to do, to be honest. So yeah, that's a big one. Because I guess what I see commonly, even not within clients, but within athletes, which you can clearly see, is something called relative energy deficiency in sport. I'm sure you've heard of that. But it's essentially when you are not eating enough calories, whether it's intentional or unintentional, to support your exercise and body needs. So often that does come with low body weight, but not necessarily. Some women can hold a bit more body fat and still have that. And some signs would be, loss of period. That's not normal, FYI. Like, if your period stops for some reason, or if you're going into a really heavy training cycle and it's really normal that's normal in quotation marks, for your period to stop, that you're probably not eating enough. Increased risk of injury, really irritable, changes in mood, that sort of thing. So that's probably one big one that I definitely see a lot of.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because I had this similar conversation with someone else regarding how abs are not, we shouldn't identify abs or a certain look as someone who's healthy, because like you said, it can mean various things. Yet we're still living in 2022 and people still look up to people who have shredded abs and like these like flat stomachs or toned bodies, and preaching, saying that, hey, they are, a model of health. But people need to realize that's not always true.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading an article about the history of how body image or body ideals have changed throughout millennia. And I wonder if, back in the day when people were looking at all those Greek and Roman statues, they thought the same. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, it's a real societal pressure. And, we feel it too as health professionals as well. Like, I openly admit to to feeling that. But yeah, I think it's just coming down to your whys. Why is that? Why do you want to achieve that? Is that actually going to create better performance? Probably not. In some instances, some sports it might, but other strength sports usually not.
Yeah, so interesting. What are some of the other ones that you come across?
Yeah, I guess like when it comes to overall nutrition, it's eating enough. Eating enough. Just like going back onto that, red S issue. It is eating enough to support your training. So many women will go on 1,600 calorie diets and think that that's appropriate to fuel their bodies, whereas most women probably need 2,000 plus calories. And if you think about the hierarchy of nutrition, calories being the base of that, making sure that you are nourishing yourself and are actually eating to support your training, to support what you're doing. Then we've got protein, eating enough protein around your meals, eating enough total protein, eating higher amounts of protein, potentially if you're vegan or vegetarian. Then your other macronutrients like carbohydrates and fats. There's a huge stigma around carbohydrates, even in the strength world. You do need carbohydrates to switch on your muscles and to get that power and to get that drive. And, in strength sports, yes, we're not going to use as much glycogen as, an endurance runner or an ultra endurance runner, but it can definitely help with fatigue or reducing fatigue. And then the last one, in that hierarchy is your supplements. So a lot of the time that hierarchy is reversed and people think, okay, what supplements do I need to take? And don't really look at, the rest of the things that really need to support their training. So they're probably the two big ones is, the abs and having that hierarchy and making sure that, everything's balanced and getting those steps right.
You made such a good point around the carbohydrates and fats, because and I'm sure you come across this as well, but I come across a lot of clients and women who say that they much prefer having fats than carbohydrates. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, as a strength performer, as you mentioned, you're going to need those carbohydrates. Now, as a researcher yourself, have you come across any studies around the differences of those who favor more fats than carbs in terms of like muscle building or performance?
I haven't come across any studies, but at the end of the day, it's when it comes to muscle building, you need to have like a calorie surplus. And while fats are generally, a bit more calorie dense and that can help increase that, carbohydrates are a lot more palatable as well and can help fuel that muscle, can help fuel, fill that muscle belly with glycogen stores so that, you're lifting heavier. And so that effort for lifting is better, so that you can put more energy into it. Because at the end of the day, if you're, carb depleted constantly, you're not going to reach that peak of performance all the time because, you just don't have the energy for it. So, and we know that to burn fat, to use fats in your cell for energy versus carbohydrates is a lot less efficient than carbohydrates alone. So it's actually better and easier for your body to use carbohydrates than fats. And I guess with the whole carbohydrates thing, I think there is a real big fear still, even in the strength community, around carbohydrates. Cutting out carbs will help you lose weight, which may be the case if you're doing a calorie deficit, which you will be. But then also eating carbs will make you gain weight. So there's like that kind of, interplay with both of them. And I guess, foods that are associated to be high carb are often the ones that are also really high fat. So you've got, pizza, donuts, pasta, that sort of thing. And they are a lot more energy dense and a lot more they're highly palatable. So, your brain is lighting up with dopamine when you eat these. So it's a lot harder to stop eating them. So it's not necessarily the carbs themselves, but it's that combination of the two. So I think that's a really big myth that kind of needs to stop, because carbs inherently aren't bad. If you eat whole grain, even just pasta, like it's fine. and fruits and veggies, all that sort of stuff. So when people kind of go, I'm not eating carbohydrates or I'm cutting out carbs, it creates this real all or nothing mentality and then puts that food on a pedestal, and then that's all you're going to crave, and then you're going to end up binging on a whole pizza, and then it's going to create that cycle again.
My favorite is when they say they're going to stop having carbs, but then they drink wine.
Oh, yeah. See, that's another thing that I've noticed a lot with clients. I like to call it casual alcoholism. It's like an oxymoron, obviously, but it's this idea that, and I see it all the time with clients, that, women will come in and have, one glass of wine that will end up being 3, one day, and then that ends up being every single day of the week. And there's this thing with society that doesn't see that as alcoholism. It's, drinking wine is dainty. I'm just unwinding. It's this real, it's a reverse stigma that we have for like men having 6 beers in a pub. But it's the same thing. It's creating the same problem. And the amount of clients that I have that do that and just refuse to give up their alcohol drinking, it's a problem.
How do you navigate those type of conversations? Because I've been through that. I know it, but I would love to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, so I think that self-reflection is the most powerful tool in that situation. There's a few things. So the first is to understand why. Why are they doing that? Often it is, I've just had a really busy day. I'm going to go unwind with the wine. And that is a numbing tool. It's to numb emotional pain. Often, that's what it is. Some people it's wine. Some people it's food. Some people it's gambling. Some people it's whatever else it is. It's a numbing tool. Netflix is also one. I don't hate Netflix, but excessive Netflix, obviously. So yeah, it's using that idea to numb. And I guess it's getting your client to work out, okay, write down every single drinking occasion that they do during the week, and then circling which ones are actually important to them. Because if they're drinking at home versus, I really want to make sure I have a drink with my friends on the weekend, then, trying to find an alternative swap for that during the week. Because everyone knows what the effects of alcohol is. I can go on about the science behind it, but at the end of the day, it's behavior change that's really important there.
Yeah, it's definitely taking those baby steps. And as you said, like reflection, realizing what are the actions that you are taking and why you're doing them in the first place. Because like you mentioned, if it's you wanting to wind down, well, guess what? That's not the correct way of you winding down.
And it could be as simple as breaking the habit, like, of your environment. So if that is you get home from work, you drop your keys off, you might like do something, and then whenever that routine or ritual, because at the end of the day, it's a ritual.
Yeah.
That ritual of drinking wine is, how can you break that ritual so that, it's not there anymore, so you don't look at it and crave it. It's hard. It's hard work. It's, breaking habits is almost harder than forming new ones. So it's, I think substitution is the best tool in that in those situations.
In that instance, what would be something that you would help a client who is wanting, to numb themselves with wine? What would you help them to substitute it to?
I guess it's, understanding what the numbing is, like why they're numbing in the first place, to get them to write down those feelings and those emotions, because we need to bring it out. Otherwise it'll come out in some other way. I'm not a psychologist. That's about the limit that I'm going to talk about the psychology of it. But that's, I think, a really important self-reflection tool. But, you just got to find something that is exciting, just as exciting. Unfortunately, non-alcoholic wine isn't that great, and I'm sure many people can vouch for that. So finding something that, might not be the same, but is completely different. It's like a really nice tea, a hot chocolate, maybe a non-alcoholic wine if you actually do like it, that's fine. But yeah, just finding any sort of substitute. And it doesn't even have to be a drink. It could be just breaking that habit so that time that you will drink, maybe go for a walk, or maybe go do something that will get you out of the house so you don't miss it.
Yeah, such a good point. I love hot chocolates. People need to have more. And tea. Oh my God. I have so many different types of tea. I could literally sell them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, literally every type of tea under the sun I have in my freaking cabinet. But that's such a good point because again, it's up to the person who wants to make that change. And again, there's so much that you can do as a coach to help them do it, but it's up to them to actually take the action and implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can lead a horse to water.
Yeah, exactly. Can't make the bitch drink it. You can't, as much as we'd want to. They've got to do it themselves. And like you said, like humans, like with your study right now, some humans just don't follow through. It's just like, well, this time you're going to have to follow through. If not, it's just going to make things worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like if it's going from 3 glasses to 2 glasses, that's already a win. So it's taking small sustainable steps that are beneficial because over a week, that's 5 less glasses, which is great.
Yeah. It's huge. And you know what? That goes back to you mentioning before about the all or nothing mindset because most people are not going to be able to go from 3 glasses to 0 because, again, it's putting that into a pedestal like the junk food that we were just talking about before.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's literally like minimizing the intake where eventually they won't even feel like having a drink at the end of the day. They want something completely different.
Yeah, it's exactly that. You've got to somehow take the power away from it. And it's not about forbidding it. That's most likely not going to happen. So even I've got clients before to just buy the mini bottles of wine, instead, and not have the big bottles around. So it's still allowing yourself to have it, but then you won't crave it as much.
Yeah, minimizing that intake as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to that hierarchy before, I wanted to talk a little bit about supplements because I used to be the freaking supplement queen. Like thinking about that right now is so embarrassing. I was literally numbing all my fucking issues with supplements. And I want us to chat a little bit more about this because especially with the health and the fitness industry, it's very big for people to push supplements onto people to whether it's to lose weight, gain muscle, whatever that fix that they're looking for. When you suggest supplements to clients, where is what's the I guess like where do you stop at giving them supplements, or do you veer them more towards the food as we mentioned before?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the answer is it depends. So first, it depends on the type of client. So if I'm looking at general population, often I will do a food first approach. Always, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of protein supplement. So I have no problem with a client potentially mixing half a scoop with their oats to boost up the protein intake, because at the end of the day, they're still getting protein from other sources of the day. We're just kind of like pimping up the protein a little bit, but it's not the main source of protein. Obviously, being a sports dietitian and worked in clinical dietetics, if they have any sort of deficiency, we want to correct that. So that's where actually prescribing supplementation is important. And I think that's a big key takeaway is don't take supplements unless you have a deficiency and like if you do have one. So a big one I see is people are taking vitamin D all the time. Go get your vitamin D tested. It's from the doctor. Get it once or twice a year. Get that sorted. Get your iron tested. There's absolutely no reason for any female to take iron supplements unless they're iron deficient. It's just going to constipate you and potentially make you interact with other medication or other supplements as well. So many people take multivitamins, which I think is just the biggest waste of money. You're just paying for expensive urine at the end of the day. So those, with general pop, a bit of protein supplement. Creatine is always great for anyone at any age. Take it. Everyone should take it. It's the safest supplement. It's just great. So creatine's a good one. For my sports nutrition clients, if they have, fulfilled that hierarchy need, then we look at supplements that can act as an ergogenic aid. So that means supplements that can improve performance. So, if they've got their calories, they're nailing their protein, they're, carb cycling, or getting their pre and post workout nutrition on point, then I'll go, okay, cool, let's look at what supplements we can use to really improve your performance, pre or post workout, or your recovery, etc. So the ones that I often will recommend is caffeine. So that for obvious reasons. So having a coffee is great, but for my more elite athletes, I will normally suggest actual supplementation. So taking no dose or Revies, which I don't know if you've seen those, but they're like caffeine strips.
Yeah.
The reason for that is exactly the dose. So with coffee, you don't, and it varies so much. So we know that caffeine can have a really significant performance effect. So I'll get my clients to have between 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight an hour before their event. And that's tested. I always test that before the event. I always take in consideration how nervous they are, because obviously caffeine will increase some anxiety as well. That's that one. Protein post-workout. If they can't tolerate protein post-training, and the same as the general pop as well. So, just to kind of supplement their meals if they need it. Protein, of course.
So for those who don't know what creatine is, do you mind explaining to them?
Yeah. So creatine is creatine phosphate. So what it does is essentially we have creatine phosphate in our muscles. And when you take creatine, it fills up those stores. And creatine phosphate is essentially used for muscle contraction. So if you think about when you're holding a barbell and that initial pull or activation of the muscle, that's creatine working. So it's like that real instant energy. So by taking creatine, you're increasing those stores and increasing your capacity to increase reps and that recovery for those types of movements. So it's really good for strength-based sports. It can also help improve muscle mass as well, so increase muscle mass, which is why I said all ages. It's great for all ages. So that's creatine. Some other supplements I sometimes suggest tart cherry juice. So that's just a really concentrated cherry juice that you can get in like a syrup form, or you can get in capsule form. I've only seen the studies in syrup form, but essentially it's really high in antioxidants. So it's really good to take just before a event, during and then after. So it can just help with that recovery. So when you don't have to have adaptation in your exercise, if that makes sense. So adaptation being increased muscle, increased strength, all that sort of stuff. You don't really want to take tart cherry juice during your regular training. And it can just help improve muscle soreness during especially like a competition.
So good. I love that. I enjoy pomegranate juice.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some studies on that. I haven't seen them, but yeah, anything that's kind of that dark berry color, it's really high in anthocyanins, which is an antioxidant. So I'm sure it would have a similar effect.
I'm sure it does. I can't remember exactly like the science behind it, but yeah, it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, nice.
What does nutrition look for you right now?
So what does it look like? That's an interesting question. I just did a comp over the weekend. And it was the first comp I didn't have to weight cut, which was brilliant. I loved it. I actually was in a slight surplus, which has never happened during comp prep, and it was fantastic. I PB'd all my events, and I just continuously gained strength throughout my 8-week prep. So highly recommend for anyone. But I live a very, very busy life. So the last couple of weeks, because I started my clinical studies and I was, up at 5 and home quite late, I'd have pretty much a smoothie for breakfast. I would have a Muscle Chef meal for lunch. And just, dinners are always different. So we, go through our menu, and pretty much our formula is fish once or twice a week. We'll have a tofu or a vegetarian dish, maybe a chicken, and then eggs or a beef, like a red meat, once a week. So then we just like swap and change. Our dinners are always different. So that's been the last couple of weeks, but often, it might be smoothie or oats, and then lunch will be some sort of wrap with heaps of salad and veg. And like dinners are the same, and snacks are just really dependent on hunger and what I'm trying to achieve at the time. So if I'm feeling like I'm not really eating enough protein, I'll probably have, high protein yogurt, some other protein snacks. I really love cottage cheese based snacks as well. I'm like a fiend for taramasalata at the moment. It's just like this. My boyfriend thinks I'm disgusting. I just eat it on toast with cheese. It's brilliant. That was really great for my surplus as well. So
getting those calories.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, like that's generally my diet. I might have something sweet if I feel like it. That's really dependent. I never deprive myself of desserts, and because I don't really feel like it that often. But I don't mind a good glass of wine as well. And we eat out maybe once every fortnight, once a month, maybe. So yeah, my nutrition is so dependent on what I'm doing, how busy I am. So often, it's a smoothie in the car on the way to work, which is not ideal. I don't recommend that for anyone, but sometimes you just have to do what you can in your environment and what you can for the best of your ability.
Yeah, like you mentioned before, it's literally just making more sustainable habits to your own lifestyle and the environment. And like you said, sometimes it's just going to make you to have the smoothie on the way to work, but sometimes you'll just have the breakfast at home.
Exactly. The biggest thing that I try to teach my clients is to build their toolbox. So their toolbox, which are meals that they can go to that are really quick and easy, that that isn't Uber Eats. And having a list of things that are non-perishable foods, making sure you have your protein, a bit of carbs and heaps of veg, and just sticking to that formula, and then just writing 5 meals that you have on hand or that are quick and easy that you can run to the supermarket and get, to kind of build that toolbox, so that when you are busy and when your plate is full, you can't think, you're already cognitive loaded, you go straight to that. So you're minimizing that choice.
Yeah, I love that. So good. We've covered so much. I'm literally out of questions, which is very rare. I'm always coming up with questions. But before we finish off, what is the number one tip you can give listeners who are mainly into strength training and nutrition on how to build more a sustainable nutrition habit towards their goals?
I think it's kind of doing a checklist of what you're doing currently and thinking of small sustainable steps that you can do. So I see a lot of clients trying to restrict. So, I need to restrict to be healthy, when in actual fact, often they have to add. So, looking at ways that you can really find places in your diet that you can nourish yourself a bit more. And often, and I'm sorry to put my dietitian hat right now on, but that's eat more veg. Like, we just need to eat more vegetables. So that will just make everyone feel better, and will be, I think, a solution to a lot of problems. But yeah, finding ways that you can add rather than restrict, and doing a checklist of doing that toolbox, and thinking about that hierarchy of needs that we talked about. So calories, your protein, hitting those two, and then looking at carbohydrates, fats, and then looking at your supplements.
I love it. Well, there you go, girls. You've got all the tips, all the suggestions around nutrition, supplements. Even, we were able to dabble in a little bit into studies and research around, which is really cool because we haven't had this conversation with anyone yet. So, Zoya, thank you so much for joining me. But before we go, where can our followers find you and how can they get to work with you?
So I'm on Instagram mainly. So it's nourished_by_science. And I've got links to my website there, but you can just DM me if you want to, have a word.
Slide into those DMs, girls. As creepy as it sounds, but it's true. It's literally
it's the way things work these days.
yeah, that's how we all connect. So, girls, thank you so much for listening in. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, and then until next time, eat your freaking vegetables, minimize the junk that you're having right now, and then taking better action steps towards a more sustainable lifestyle.